My motivation here was not to make a political point, it was to make a God point. This is a miracle, just like everything else that we've experienced as a people. We are not people that doubt. We have emunah, we have faith, and we go with what God is giving to us, and this should be no different.
This week on Tribe Journal, we look at art gone viral with Yael Resnick to discuss her intended and perhaps unintended messages in her cartoons. I'm JP Katz. Thanks for joining us. You're listening to the TRIBECAST on Tribe Journal. Okay, we're here with Yael Resnick from Israel, the artist that just recently went viral. I saw your art in a WhatsApp group, but before we get into that, maybe tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm originally from Los Angeles, California, and we made Aliyah 7.5 years ago to First Efrat, and now we live in Karnei Shomron, which is the middle of Samaria. We're about an hour and a half from Yerushalayim, so it's still close enough to be able to be in the center of like the art world, which is where most things happen.
What is the center of the art world when it comes to Jewish art? I guess you're talking about Jewish art, right?
Jewish art is usually in the Jerusalem area. I mean, now with Corona, everything is just from home. So
let's jump right in. I just by way of background, everyone's wondering like, how did we meet? I basically just sent Yael an email and asked if she could meet on Zoom so that we could get to know her a little bit. We can understand what was behind some of the art that was going viral, at least in my WhatsApp group. I'm located in Boston, by the way, so it was interesting to see this piece of art. It was a cartoon, a political cartoon, but a religious cartoon, but a political cartoon, but a religious cartoon. And it was very interesting and well done. We want to take a look at it and maybe discuss it a little bit and get your thoughts on that. Let me just bring that up. What's your Instagram page, Yael?
It's just my name, Yael Resnick. My motivation in writing it was I was kind of scrolling through Facebook and I noticed I had two sets of voices in my feed. My friends that were very pro-vaccination, and it was mostly coming from doctors and nurses. And then the people that were skeptical, kind of arguing and fighting against this new vaccine that's out. And before I worked professionally as an artist, I was a teacher. So the teacher side of me wanted to make a point. And I'm also very sarcastic, so in real life. So I mean, I do cartoons on the side every now and then. I did a campaign for Corona to promote health and mask wearing. You can check it out on my Instagram. I partnered up with a friend who's very punny and is a writer, Jessica Levine Kupferberg. She's a writer, Times of Israel, and together we came up with like a health campaign for, I think it started Rosh Hashanah, and then we did one for Yom Kippur and Sukkot, and we continued into Hanukkah, and we have one coming out for Tu B'Shvat.
When you say a health campaign, what do you mean?
They're just these little, like, for instance, we had a little cartoon shofar that says, shofar apart, but together at heart. So we made up little puns that, played on the holidays, trying to, I guess, convince people to not spend their holidays together, and to, some of them were about mask wearing, keeping your distance. So I've done several cartoons in the past. Usually they're not, I wouldn't describe them as political, because I really don't want to invite an argument, because there are so many different opinions out there.
That's a great transition into this political one.
So I know that in America, everything health related is also very political. Here in Israel, we're in the middle of maybe a fourth run of elections, but Corona is not connected to the politics necessarily. Yes, politics are controlling the way that people are with each other, with lockdowns and everything. But my motivation here was not to make a political point. It was to make a God point, to show that this is a miracle, just like everything else that we've experienced as a people. And we are not people that doubt. We have emunah, we have faith, and we go with what God is giving to us, and this should be no different. We and I don't know,
okay, let me just interrupt you for a sec.
Different parts. Yeah, ask a question.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to actually see the art. Let's just take a look. Slavery was terrible, but this rescue happened way too fast. We don't yet know the long-term effects of being saved. I'd rather take my chances with a slavery that has a relatively high survival rate. And the picture is of the Israelites leaving Egypt, emerging on the other side of the sea, which is split by Hashem. So the miraculous story of Passover. What are your thoughts on that? Because we'll talk more about the different misinterpretations or correct interpretations in a moment, but let's hear your thoughts.
This is something that I directly saw several times. People stated exact thoughts, that the vaccine came out too fast and they're skeptical to rely on it, and they're willing to get corona instead. So I just basically copied that sentiment and inserted it into Yetziat Mitzrayim, splitting of the sea. How, it shouldn't be any different. Yes, sometimes miracles happen quickly, and that's just something that we should appreciate.
Nice. So the miracle, meaning you're pointing that nature is a miracle itself, and Hashem hides behind nature, and so the vaccine is also miraculous.
I mean, if we can all agree that Hashem was in charge of the splitting of the sea, then we can also agree that Hashem is behind the vaccine, fast or not fast. We needed it quickly, so it came quickly, and now we're complaining about it.
Got it. So
of course.
Right. So the idea here is Passover is known for hurry up. We got to get out of slavery. We have this opportunity, the window of opportunity, and we're all in a hurry to get out of Egypt. And so it's less on the miraculous, on whether it's miraculous or not. It's more on hurry up, let's get out of here.
Well, that I was trying to find iconic, events in our Jewish history that were similar to this feeling of, something that was rushed. So that was the thing that I thought most connected to the rushed feeling. We're almost in our third lockdown, and this second kind of corona that's coming out in England. Before the next news story, and people were still excited about the vaccine, I wanted to get this out as quickly as possible. So instead of drawing something from scratch, I took some of my paintings that I had already made, added to why I actually chose those three. But
good. So it's for efficiency purposes as well, and repurposing these beautiful paintings. Yeah, for sure. That's a smart move. Smart move. So okay.
Promote myself a little, but whatever.
Say again.
And to promote my artwork a little, get it out there.
I think it worked. I think you got your name out there. We're helping to get your name out there. Maybe people will log on and purchase some of this beautiful art. So I'm looking at it again in that context. Slavery was terrible, but this rescue happened way too fast. We don't yet know the long-term effects of being saved. I'd rather take my chances with a slavery that has a relatively high survival rate. I actually, it's so funny to see it now in the context of your explanation that the idea you were going for was really just get out of Egypt quickly, and therefore here's the vaccine that happened quickly. I have to pause and think now. Hold on. And that's the great thing about art and political art, is that it makes you think. It sort of hits the right chords that are right in between two camps that might be duking it out and thinking, very different things. And art is always it's always the eye of the beholder, right? And especially with political art. So I'm just looking at this, and fascinated by the different nuances of the caption. So let me just see that again. Slavery was terrible, but this rescue happened way too fast. We don't yet know the long-term effects of being saved. I'd rather take my chances with a slavery that has a relatively high survival rate.
It's a direct, almost quote from the skeptical voices that I've been seeing. When a doctor or nurse or someone in the medical field says, take this vaccine, there's nothing wrong with it, even though it's fast, it was approved by the FDA and everything. This is basically what they answer. So I was just mimicking their work.
Meaning that Corona itself has a high survival rate. I'd rather not take the rushed vaccine. I'd rather take my chances with a high survival rate instead of the high preventative rate, which would prevent them from getting the coronavirus to begin with.
Exactly.
So because the vaccine was rushed, people are saying it's too rushed, I'm not going to do it. And the theme of leaving Egypt was also rushed. We had to go in a hurry, but it was for our own good, and we wouldn't ask questions on, well, can we just slow down and take it easy? No, there's actually impending doom. The Egyptian army is on our tail, and they're literally pinning us up against the sea. We have to go through here. So there's not much choice. In other words, that was really the intention there.
Yes, that was the intention.
So the anti-vax, it's really a bit of a slap to the anti-vaccine people who are saying that the vaccine is dangerous. Of course it's Of course things are dangerous, but this is the way we prevent it. Is that the right message?
Exactly.
There are risks, but this is the way we're going to avoid contracting the. Right. Okay. Great. Right, excellent. Exactly. All right. So let's move right along here. So now here's another piece. It says this is now a picture of the Israelites now encamped around Mount Sinai, where the Torah was given, the holiday of Shavuot, and it says, the caption reads, "This manna may sustain us, but we don't know what's in it. Even though Moses, the head expert, says it's safe, I'm not taking my chances." What are your thoughts on that? I think people may have read it both ways, and right, the idea being that comparing like the expert Dr. Fauci to Moses is by itself like a really, like that comparison was sort of the first knee-jerk reaction. What is your response to that?
It's really just comparing it to our doctors and our nurses that we trust. No specific doctor.
Yeah, no, we're not going down the conspiracy road where Fauci was, someone tried to pin him as
I wasn't in no way
companies
I wouldn't compare Moses to a modern day person. I just wanted to show, to parallel that we trust our caregivers and the people that take care of us, and they are saying that it's safe. I specifically have a very good friend who's a nurse, who her name is Nurse Noah. If you want to check her out on Facebook. She's taken the time, volunteered her time to explain all the doubts that people may be having about Corona. And she works in an emergency room, and she has close contact with doctors. And I just felt like if our doctors and our nurses are saying this is safe, we need to trust them the same way, we trusted Moses.
There's an expertise. We don't know what's in the Torah. The Torah is being given. We haven't read it. We said Nasiv and Nishma. We're ready to do, and then we'll understand it more deeply. And in a similar vein, that people should have trust in the experts that have come up and tested through all of the trials. They've identified these vaccines as with a percentage of success as a successful vaccine that we should take. So why should we question too greatly why should we be in doubt of the medical profession, so to speak?
Correct.
So you see that could
yes.
For people who are after Corona, and there's been so much like up and down and left and right and like all sorts of confusion, I think is probably a normal response from a person on the ground, just like going through their news feed. If they're in one particular internet bubble, then I think it's probably less confusing. But if they're actually checking both left and right wing pundits, then and they're looking at all the different opinions and conspiracies and not conspiracies, then it becomes a very confusing thing to really understand what's going on. And then you add on to that the fact that the pharmaceutical industry probably spent over $1 trillion on the vaccine. To have it go herd immunity would be, not a waste of money, but it would probably be not in their best interests. And then you combine that with all of the political string pulling that happens with corporate America in Congress, which is pretty well known. Then it becomes, really quite a questionable thing. It was a rush job that they pushed through. Okay, they tested it. So I think those are the two sides of the argument, where people are apprehensive to be the not the guinea pigs, but the guinea pigs in terms of it's an abnormal test period. Normally there would be, I think, at least 6 more months of testing, a year of testing to test the long-term effects. So what would your response be to people who would say, we can't compare that to Moses? Like, first of all, God gave the Torah at Mount Sinai, and all of the Jewish people heard it. And so they were hearing directly from God himself, not the expert, but the actual, the giver of the Torah. And so then they said Nasa v'nishma. What would be your response to people who are maybe on the other side of the political spectrum or the vaccine spectrum, and saying that they're feeling very apprehensive about trusting the experts after a very arduous year that has passed?
I think it's a positive thing that people are asking questions and thinking for themselves. I would never want to take that away from anyone, especially in, the message I'm trying to send in this cartoon. I think it's a very good thing to think about what you're doing and why you're doing it. Again, my point was just to show that we've trusted God in the past, and we can trust him now. Hopefully. That was my point, that it's a safe thing.
Meaning that God is in charge of everything, and the idea that he can send miracles through nature, and that sometimes the vaccine, although it is science, is not necessarily a contradiction. We're not Christian scientists where we believe that we should stay away from all science and allow God to heal everybody. We have to put in our effort. We have to strive to solve the world's problems. We have to put in that valiant effort. Bob Marley, who had, I think he refused to amputate his toe and died of, I think, toe cancer. What was it? It was skin cancer. Under his toenail, there was a little black spot, and he believed that the body was a sanctuary until the point where he shouldn't even amputate his toe. Our religion is not to believe that doctors are evil or medicine is evil. Rather, that God gives the intellectual ability to work within nature to try to manipulate nature for the best outcome, and that's what the vaccine represents.
Also, where would we be if we didn't eat the manna? Where would we be today? We wouldn't have made it through the desert. And the same sentiment as the splitting of the sea. If we decided not to go, we'd still be in Egypt to this day. If we didn't eat the manna, we would have died.
That this is the miracle. The vaccine is miraculous. The fact that it was a rush job, but it came through in such a quick period of time, it's pretty incredible. It's miraculous, and therefore, why would we scoff at this miraculous production of a vaccine that's going to help us, stop this virus from killing people?
Exactly.
Beautiful. Okay, good. Okay, I'm glad we clarified that. See, I'm just saying, I'm just showing you that I thought, either she intended this sort of nuances to, to really stoke the conversation, but it's interesting now to sort of, and this is part of what our series is all about, is having conversations, is really understanding each other and not just making quick judgments. So this is fantastic. This is really a great exercise at the least, never mind the fact that we get to look at all this beautiful art. Okay, so now we're moving right along. and thank you. I may have caught you off guard. Just full disclaimer to the audience. I don't know, if I made it clear that this was sort of the angle that I wanted to look at the art and have like a discussion in this way. It wasn't just my call wasn't just to have you walk us through the art and your perspective, but actually have a deeper discussion about the art to give you that feedback. I know as a vlogger, as someone who produces content on the internet, a like and a share is not always indicative of, it's not feedback. You like feedback. You like to hear what your audience is thinking about whatever thought you just shared with them, and to have some feedback I thought might also be interesting for you as well. Are you finding that?
It's very helpful to see that sometimes your words may be interpreted in a different way than you intended. So it's a good lesson for me.
Totally. It's great. I'm glad we're having that experience. Okay, so now we have the Kohen, the temple official, lighting the menorah. This isn't like any oil we've used before. It has a different molecular structure, making it last extra long. I don't feel comfortable with that inside my menorah. Okay, great. So speak that out.
Okay, so I'm not a science person, so I can't really explain the whole mRNA, debate, but I've been seeing among the people who I follow that people are nervous because of the science involved in the vaccine. So I was trying to prove a point that, sometimes there are strange things we don't understand, but we accept them anyway, and that's okay.
That's a great point. So you're saying that, wow, we have this vaccine that with 95% success will prevent people from getting the coronavirus. And people are saying, I don't want to put that in my body. I don't know what's in it. But if it's miraculous in the sense that the miracle of science, that it actually prevents the coronavirus from from taking hold of a person's life. What if the Kohanim decided not to put the oil in the menorah because it was not behaving in the most natural way? We wouldn't have we certainly wouldn't have Hanukkah. Beautiful idea, Baruch Hashem. Okay, very nice. What are your thoughts in terms of this exercise? Like how has this been in terms of like looking at the different perspectives on the art? It's just by way of background. We did a documentary on Tribe Journal, and the documentary is essentially, it's called Social Media Wars, the military industrial newsfeed. And it goes through and shows how war was disrupted with the onset of social media. So these days, if you look at Richard Stengel, he was the undersecretary during the Obama administration. And his job was essentially fighting online against ISIS and Russia disinformation campaigns and recruitment campaigns. And he gives some pretty horrific numbers, like over $1 billion is spent by both China and Russia is spending over $1 billion per year on disinformation campaigns with the sole intent of polarizing and destroying the United States or isolating it on the international stage. So it's a really interesting thing, having in 2018 made that documentary and then watching Netflix's, video about their movie about social media and watching all of the different things come out, but actually watching the slow sort of shipwreck, the slow Titanic, like hitting that iceberg, has been really frightening, and to say the least. Knowing that we have these adversaries that are trying to polarize the country, and watching the election from that perspective was a totally different lens than maybe red or blue. It was more of a purple lens that we need to really come together. We have to have more conversations. We have to be aware of when we share, and not just share out of passion or anger or whatever, but actually share responsibly. And so it was interesting to see that in this WhatsApp group that I'm in, people were having different reactions, and that's why I decided to reach out. So I really appreciate you making the time. I'd love to hear, going through all this art, I'd love to hear your thoughts on, I think, it's so fascinating, for example, that you really had no intention of the politics, the political polarization that may exist, that you were really sort of in one camp or in one bubble, if you will, and not really, potentially getting the information from the other side of the aisle. If you would divide it by some sort of aisle, I don't think it's a Democrat Republican thing here. I think there's many different ways to cut the pie. But what are your thoughts in terms of, when you do? You should maybe just keep doing this, and then the polarity creates this like organic virility that your business could potentially and will likely benefit from. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I was actually very nervous when I pressed, send button on this cartoon, because even though I wrote in the post, I'm not inviting any debate here on vaccines or any politics. So I was very nervous that I would get some negative feedback. I did not get hardly any negative comments. In fact, a bunch of people wrote to me that they were on the fence about taking the vaccine, and all of these concerns, the 3 concerns that I've written about, the expedited vaccine, the not wanting to put toxins in their body, and worried, even though their doctors were telling them it was okay, they were debating all of those reasons, and they said because of this perspective, this new perspective, like accept the miracle that's coming your way, they are now on the other side, and they're very excited to get their vaccine. So just knowing that I made a small difference, at least in my agenda, which is getting more people vaccinated, made me feel like, it was worth it, even just for one person. So,
Amazing.
I hope that it did not stir up a lot of conflict. It probably stirred up some conflict in the world. That wasn't my intention. My intention was to get more people vaccinated and stay healthy through this whole thing. So
that's interesting. So there is, I'm not the only one who is walking on eggshells before hitting send or hitting publish.
I always, say a little prayer, like, please let this be read in the right way. And most of the time my audience does accept it the way that I intended. So,
but we'll never really know, will we?
We don't always know. Like I didn't even know that it made it to WhatsApp groups. So, it's good to know that things travel and that people have passion about it enough to, feel affected by it either way. Like, even if people were offended by my words, it got them thinking, and that's always a good thing too. So I'm glad I was able to clarify what I meant and what I intended. And of course, once you put something out in the world, it can be read by every individual in the way that they see it. So that's just the way it is.
Incredible. Yael Harris Resnick, thank you so much for spending this time with us, for sharing your perspective and your beautiful art. And where can people find your art if they want to make a purchase?
I have my own website. It's my own name, yaelharrisresnick.com. I'm also on Facebook with my same name, and Instagram. And, you can reach out however you want. I'm available. So thank you for having me. It's really an honor.
Okay, great. To be continued. Thank you so much. I'm
Thank
JP
you.
Katz from Tribe Journal. And thank you so much, Yael Harris Resnick, for joining us and sharing your wonderful, wonderful perspective and art with the world. All the best.
Thank you. Shalom.
I'm JP Katz, and you're listening to the TRIBECAST at tribejournal.org. I'd love to hear your perspectives and questions. Message me sometime.